It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show here at AM 830 WCRN. And you can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. You text it like you would any other number. It appears on the screen here in the studio in real time. We try to incorporate it into the conversation. Don't forget that the station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app, like thousands of other stations do. So we're very easy to find and very easy to take anywhere. We can get on your device, your tablet, your phone, laptop, etc. That's TuneIn. Punch in WCRN. You'll see our cool logo right here. And then we know you're there. And then we're very easy to find, or tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she'll do that. No questions asked. Now, I do stream my show to multiple platforms, the station's Facebook page, YouTube channel, as well as my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, X, Facebook. We also do Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to the Rumble channel. So join us on the stream as a broadcast from the Cameo studio. So the Cameo cam is on. And of course, you can join the conversation at any time. Today, behind the glass, flying the board back at HQ, he'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation at 508-871-7000. So today, obviously, this horrific story out of Carolina with the stabbing of the Ukrainian refugee is still in the news, going to be in the news. But also what's in the news, folks, on this is the fact that the left is pissed that it's even being covered. And that, I mean, you got idiotic statements from the mayor in Charlottesville talking about we can't arrest your way into security and safety. Yes, you can. That's the purpose of arresting people, actually, you moron. And then you've got people like Stelzer and all these people, MSNBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, etc. We're talking about, well, this is a flashpoint. This is, the right, the MAGA people are going to use this to illustrate crime in big cities. Yes. I don't even understand why you think that's not going to happen or is a bad thing that happened. But this is a flashpoint moment. At a conference yesterday, a press conference yesterday, Attorney Russ Ferguson, he rebuked a reporter who asked whether the swift federal charges in the Charlotte light rail murder case were mere political grandstanding. A war refugee who went from a bomb shelter to what she thought was the safety bosom of the United States is brutally murdered for no reason whatsoever on public transportation. Now, he shot back, I don't see how you would see this case as political grandstanding. This is a heinous crime, and we're going to remedy it. Now, I can't help but thinking a couple things. If he had used a gun instead of a knife, what would the conversation be? What if we reversed races of everybody involved? Just assign different races. She wasn't a Ukrainian, white, blonde, 27-year-old. What if she was Asian? What if she was black? What if she was from the Caribbean or Trinidad? Just play that mental game for a while. And try to guess what the media coverage would be then. Now, this guy Ferguson emphasized that there's no opposite side. Thank you for somebody pointing that out. There should be no opposite side, because think about where you're at if you were taking the opposite side. So he says there is no opposite side in letting murderers or murders occur because we're releasing dangerous individuals. And he went on to add, of course, this is a pure and simple federal case. And Sean Duffy got involved because it was on a railway in public, because it falls under transportation. They did grab it as a federal case. So that means this guy is now facing federal charges under 18 USC 1992, covering the use of a weapon causing death on a mass transit system, which could carry the death penalty. Now, Ferguson also signaled that civil rights charges are also on the table. If it does turn out, if it shows, the evidence shows, the attack was race or gender motivated. But shortly coming in the studio and coming on air, somehow an audio conversation was released between the perpetrator and the sister. And based on that, the spin he's coming in with, and I'm just regurgitating what I heard coming in, was he was talking to her about, that wasn't me. That's not me who did that. So let's see where that goes. But Attorney General Pam Bondi, so she's gone and directed prosecutors to seek the maximum penalty, stating that this guy Brown will never see freedom again. Meanwhile, Kash Patel, FBI director, similarly condemned the murder, reaffirmed federal commitment to justice and public safety. So Brown had a history, guys, of violent offenses, about 18 years stretching back, of violent offenses, mental health issues. This has prompted some criticism that softer crime policies in Democratic-led locales contributed to the tragedy. You think? So this is a flashpoint case. And President Trump calling for a swift trial and death penalty. Of course, anything Trump says, the left has to, knee-jerk reaction. They got to, and he's constantly doing this to them, aren't they? By taking the absolute common sense position, the right position on law and order crime. We're finding people who are so deranged over Trump starting to defend heinous crimes, heinous actions, heinous people. Unbelievable. Let's talk about this surveillance video of the crime. Now, it went viral, but the thing is, it happened a little while ago, folks. And the media didn't pick it up. And I heard some Jamoke talk about, well, there's a lot of crimes going every day that aren't publicized. You know what the difference is, folks? And bear with me on this. A lot of times crimes that happen, they don't make sense because they were useless. But in the context that they happen, you get it, including the stray bullet that goes through the window and hits the 8-year-old or 5-year-old sleeping in bed. Tragic. And it should not happen. But you understand what was going on there in the sense that, unfortunately, these people live in the middle of a domestic war zone, and that happens. But more often, you see the genesis of the murder, road rage, parking lot or parking space argument escalates, something at a restaurant, a club, somebody looked at guy's girl the wrong way, whatever it is. This has no genesis like that. This was a situation, this young lady wasn't anywhere she shouldn't have been. It was like 9:40 or 45. And then in the evening, after she gets off her job at the pizzeria, still wearing the pizzeria uniform, hair is still up, the whole bit. It makes absolutely no sense. There was no confrontation, no previous crossroads of these two individuals. This was a situation where she got into a well-lit, occupied train. This is the other part of it. Several other people in the car. I'm embarrassed for the human race that nobody did anything to intervene or immediately help this girl either. As she looked up at him in shock, couldn't believe what was going on. And initially, you didn't think it might have been as bad as it was, because she held her composure for so long until she bled out and passed away right there. And so this video, it did go viral eventually, ignited the public outcry, and of course, Charlotte officials to ramp up security in the Blue Line. And the mayor to say, thank you for not really sharing this. Why? What are you thinking? And she's backtracking that a little bit. The victim's family has expressed their desire to bury her here in the U.S., highlighting her love for her new country. Still, and her family still want to, honor that desire she had, the love that she had for her adopted country of the United States. So hopefully that can happen. Hopefully that can happen. I don't know, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. That's how you get into the studio for two-way talking conversation. Now, the other thing that we have to talk about on this is the magistrate, Teresa Stokes. She released this guy to Carlos Brown Jr. on a cash-free bail. And I think when historians look back at this time in American history, in this absolute ludicrous movement to cash-free bail, they're going to say, wow, that was one of the stupidest things that particular civilization, those people did. It made no sense by the definition of what bail is. She accepted a written promise that he'd appear in court. But there's big news about this magistrate judge, and I got to hold it for the break here, but we do have to take our first break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show at AM 830 WCRN, reminding you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. Stick with us. We'll be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds, folks.
Are you ready for a change? Do you need a job that works around your schedule? How about driving your own kids to school and getting paid for it? AA Transportation is offering paid CDL training with regular permit classes that get you on the road. They have immediate openings for school bus and van drivers, as well as monitors across several districts. All you need is a good driving record with at least 5 years experience, a clean quarry, the ability to pass a pre-employment drug screening and DOT physical. If you already have a school bus or 7D certificate, join us now and earn up to $30 an hour with guaranteed minimum hours, health and dental benefits, plus a 401k. And for those experienced coach bus drivers out there, we have a position for you too. This is perfect for parents, retirees, or anyone who enjoys being behind the wheel. Call Lori at 774-361-5042. That's 774-361-5042. Start your journey with AA Transportation.
Here we go.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second segment of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, September 10th, which of course you know what tomorrow is. But I want to go back to this DeCarlos Brown and the cashless bail and the stupidity of that. Just cashless bail. Bail was created and existed to prevent those with the inclination to flee not to, by making the cost of fleeing greater than acceptable. which is why bail is usually tied to the severity of the crime, which is why we used to hear the argument for either low bail or no bail. In other words, being released on personal recognizance. So once again, we always had cashless bail. That was called personal recognizance. If the prosecution and the defense presented their arguments to the judge, and the judge was convinced that given the crime and possible punishment this person faces, the fact that they are very well seated in the community, they have family, friends, work or business, they've got a mortgage, that their life, their identity is in this community, and that their chances of fleeing are very, very low, considering that they would have nothing, that they've built a life and they have a lot to lose. If they got up and ran, they'd have to run for the rest of their lives. It's not worth it. So if they weigh that against the possibility of fleeing, the judge says, well, actually, I'm going to release you on your personal recognizance. Given this hiccup that we're facing in front of you right now, you will probably not run. So that's personal recognizance. Or we could call that cash-free bail, right? So that's always existed. It's like when they try to throw these mass ballots. Well, we've always had absentee ballots, but the left wanted to capitalize on it. So this stupidity of cash-free bail is asinine. Because if you got somebody facing a very serious crime that would carry a very serious punishment, then they're going to make it hurt if they leave. And then the idea was to make it so ridiculous that either the family wasn't going to risk putting their house up or their life savings because they didn't trust that the person wasn't going to leave, right? So you let the family make that decision. Or if they were so wealthy that they could lose $1 million and they had the means to get to a non-extradition country, you get the case. Okay, you get what I'm talking about. So this idiot of a magistrate with no bail, with all of these arrests, violent history, mental health history, and then accepted a written promise that he'd appear in court. But you know what, guys? An investigation into the North Carolina State Bar's database, this woman, is she qualified to be the judge? She's not qualified to practice law in North Carolina. Her name is not on any bar licensure in North Carolina. North Carolina law does not require a magistrate judge to be licensed attorneys. That is actually permissible under their state statutes. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Lines are open and available. Let's go to the phones. Mark's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
You see the results of the preliminary mayoral election results out of Boston yesterday?
No. Share, please.
Michelle Wu, like 72%, and Kraft, about 23, 24, I believe. Yeah, percent.
Yikes.
That's the gap between the two. Now, I'll make this quick. It's a lot of times things in this world are what they call ironic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's ironic that it looks to me, from what I'm seeing from these poll results, is that the cradle of liberty, Boston, Massachusetts, home of Paul Revere, and the Boston Massacre and the Tea Party, will be the first American city to fall to the neo-Marxists. Isn't that ironic?
It is ironic. Sad, but ironic.
But true.
Yeah.
But true.
Absolutely.
That woman is not a progressive. She's a neo-Marxist, and I'm even toning that down a little bit.
Thank you for that. Yes. Tell you can.
Yeah.
You are. No,
Yeah.
we'll look into that a little more. I will anyway in the show. I had no doubt that Wu was going to pull it out. I mean, in Kraft, I mean, I thought he would have had a better showing just because of the money that he has, right? I mean, what are they worth? $4 billion the family's worth. But hey, the old saying, Mark, right? We deserve the government we elect, and that's sad. And I guess we'd have to tie that into low voter turnouts are always favorable to the incumbents. If it's, that's what scares an incumbent, right? If there's a high voter turnout, they can't predict it. When they know that it's going to be 30, 33%, even 40% voter turnout, they pretty much know because they know the history. That Mark, thank you for the call. I appreciate it. But when you're running as a candidate or you're managing a campaign, I mean, the first thing you do is you crunch all those numbers. You pull all the voting records for your candidate or for yourself if you're the candidate for 4 cycles, 6 cycles, depending what it is. You've got to look at, is it off year, in year, presidential year, what's going on, who's going to vote, and you'll see the trend, and you'll know by those voting records what houses, what registered voters, and then you start to realize, wait a minute, there are a lot of people on here that don't live here anymore, or they've been dead for 6 years, but they're still on the voter registration. Another conversation, different show. But the point is, that's what you do. Because during the campaign, and as brutal as this sounds, during the campaign, you have no interest in talking to people who don't go vote. Now, when you get elected, that's a different thing. They're your constituent if you get elected. But during the campaign, getting elected is different than being a good elected representative. They're not exclusive to each other. And that's because getting elected, there's a certain science to it. And that science is marketing, basically. If I'm marketing a widget, I'm not going to spend, especially today, where with digital marketing, you can target your dollars right to the people who fit the profile you want, your demographic for that. Same thing with getting elected. So when you do door knocking, you don't waste a second to knock on a door that based on the history of voting that you've taken, crunched, examined, and now you've got the list of doors you have to knock on, because there is basically 100% chance these people are going to vote because they have voted in every election for 6 years. They even voted in the off years. They even voted in just the local. These people vote. You better get FaceTime with them. And if the next house only votes in a presidential election year, you're less apt to spend your time there, but you do, especially if it's a presidential. So anyway, when we see this is what's happening, because all the people, and I don't know what the voter turnout was in Boston and for this race, because that's not what I was doing today, but we'll look it all up. We'll research it. The people who don't want Wu to be another absolutely feckless mayor, not even feckless, dangerous mayor, didn't get out and go vote. It's almost that simple in a lot of ways. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So this case, this magistrate, Teresa Stokes, who did the cash free, give me a written promise you'll appear, which was asinine. But she's not a licensed practicing attorney. She's not someone that apparently, to the best I can find, passed a bar or even went to law school. And that can happen for magistrates. So what is this woman even dealing or doing, seeing or hearing this case? And Brown had a very troubling history, 14 prior arrests. And we're not talking shoplifting. We're talking, this includes violent charges, weapon charges too. His most recent arrest before this fatal stabbing stemmed from a false 911 call. And this odd delusional claim about this man-made material controlling him. So clearly we're at a level of mental illness above any of the norm that you might deal with. And if he thinks he's being controlled, and when people start to hear voices, and this isn't even a joke, when somebody says that they're hearing voices, a therapist is going to ask if the voices are external or internal, because it makes a difference as to the diagnosis of what's going on there. So he had this very troubling past. And then within just months of being released, Brown stabbed this 23-year-old, I think I said 27 at one time, I'm sorry, 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zaruska, aboard this Charlotte train. And because of this case with this judge, it's going to draw a little attention to the systemic vulnerability of magistrate judges in North Carolina. And if they can hold decision-making power at this level, including bail determination, without any legal training or bar credentials, am I the only one that finds this absolutely insane? Critics argue this setup may lead to poor risk assessments. Again, duh. Especially when you're dealing and handling these repeat offenders, as we can see in Brown's subsequent lethal violence here. And I would argue that most seasoned judges with legal training and a bar, under their belt, might have come up with hopefully a different action. So now you've got North Carolina Republicans, they're demanding Stokes be removed from her position, criticizing both human and systemic failures. The time to have removed her is not to have appointed her in the first place. But folks, we're approaching the time for a mid-show break here on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, reminding you to join the conversation because lines are open and available at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And our text line 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. And we are streaming live to multiple platforms. So join us. Hey, hold on, folks. Back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Woohoo!
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. I've got temperatures today stuck in the 60s under mostly cloudy skies at the coast, a little drizzle for the Cape, a bit of rain for today. Further inland, I think it's just going to be a little gloomy, but traveling far north and west, you're going to see some pops of sunshine working in. Sunshine's back for everyone with some upper 70s for your Thursday plans. Friday just as bright, but a little cooler. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. You can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
Headline news, weather, and local information central to your day on Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Have you noticed past the age of 30, your energy level, mood, skin, and body has changed, and maybe not for the better? It may have to do with DHEA levels. DHEA is an important building block for more than 50 different hormones, and the body naturally produces DHEA. We make the most DHEA in our prime between the ages of 18 to 25. DHEA levels decline each year in men and women after about age 30. Research has established that maintaining healthy DHEA levels may help us feel more energetic, help reduce belly fat, set and help us get a better night's sleep. Often, youthful levels of DHEA are tied to good health, while declining levels can contribute to an assortment of common health problems. Twist 25 is a high-quality DHEA supplement cream that absorbs easily into the skin, leaving no odor or oily residue. To learn more, visit twist25.com or call toll-free 888-489-4782. Look and feel your best with Twist 25, 888-489-4782.
All right, folks, welcome back here for the second half of the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Every weekday afternoon at 1 o'clock, we come your way. And don't forget, we do stream the show on multiple platforms, Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and yes, to Rumble. So I wanted one final thing on this DeCarlos Brown and this judge, because I think it's crazy that North Carolina has this kind of setup. So magistrate judge Teresa Stokes, who released DeCarlos Brown on this cashless written promise bail bull, is not licensed to practice law, does not have a law degree, but in North Carolina, magistrates are appointed. I never like judges being elected either, because I think then they, you know what that, they should be appointed. And there should be some pretty tough criteria for judges, because the amount of power that we, the people, convey into a judge, just like we do with police officers who can detain you, judges can imprison you. They have control of your life. They should be very well educated and even tempered and have a sense of justice. But they're appointed, which is good, but are not required to be lawyers. Think about that. All they need is a 4-year college degree or equivalent work experience. What does that mean? What would be the equivalent work experience of a 4-year degree or of a 4-year judge? Like, what the hell does that mean? So then they have to do this basic certification and training program. Completion of this basic program, it's 40 hours of initial training, plus they have to annually continue their education, like realtors do. Yeah. Now, Columbia Law Review, they did a study back in 2022, and they found that 80% of the magistrates lack a Juris Doctorate. So this raised a lot of concerns about legal competency in critical preliminaries. Now, DeCarlos Brown released on Stokes' decision with 14 prior arrests, robbery, dangerous weapon, false 9-1, and had the schizophrenia diagnosis. At minimum, they should have been in a mental institution or hospital to be treating him, if not in jail. So months after his release, this poor 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee stabbed after leaving work. War refugee, come to this country. She's working. She loves her new country. She loves that she's been adopted by the United States and taken in, and she's doing the American dream thing. She got a job. She's working. She's supporting herself. It's crazy. The Republicans in North Carolina, including a coalition of state representatives, are formally demanding that Judge Stokes be removed from that position. And of course, the frustration is echoing over broader concerns over just the softer on crime policies here, folks. This is a perfect example. He should not have ever been allowed to be in that position of walking the streets like that, being prone to these violent actions, and then having a mental illness that is putting him outside of the control of his body and his thoughts at all times. So should these magistrates be handling felony level bail and release decisions without being licensed attorneys? Do these minimal training requirements suffice for these consequential roles? No, in my opinion. 508-871-7000. What say you on this? Let's go to the phones. Ken's been waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Oh, Joe, you have an argument, but I don't know if credentials makes any difference. You're telling me that there isn't a single judge in Massachusetts who wouldn't have done the same thing as Stokes? Oh, I would disagree.
No, I agree. That's a different conversation. But if you don't have the basic minimum understanding of our Constitution, which you learn in law school, of the Bill of Rights, which you learn in law school, of case history, criminal history, the principles of criminal law, if you don't have any of that, what the hell are you drawing on as a judge magistrate? Maybe for traffic or workman's comp cases or something like that. But you're going to let judge magistrates without a law degree? How about that? Just a law degree. Maybe you didn't go take the bar. Maybe I'm okay with that. But you have absolutely no education in law? What the hell is life equivalency?
You make a good point. In traditional times, we don't live in those traditional times. The core problem is society as a whole. There are those who are just not grasping the basics of a civilized society. That's the problem. It's like, okay, we're at a reckoning point. We find out who are lost, who are still there and can be saved. And we just hope there are enough people left that are still there and or can be saved, make up a majority so that the republic as we know it doesn't collapse. Because if we had the whole justice system like the situation in Charlotte, we would be in the midst of a collapse. But, we were kind of in that in 2020, the summer of 2020. And that's what a lot of this brought upon, to the point where you have the media, virtually all of U.S. Pravda, not acknowledging how outrageous this case is, as you pointed out. So we, the people, are the only ones that can save us.
Well, yeah, I mean, the step that is being taken here is you've got a group of politicians and citizens down there saying, we demand this woman be removed. She's clearly not capable of this job. And maybe they have to get a bill through or get a ballot question or change who's qualified or who's allowed to make these such weighty decisions. Maybe they got to change something in Carolina. And on that note, I don't know where you are, Ken. Do you believe in these? There are states and districts that elect judges, not appoint judges. I don't believe in the electing of the judge. I believe in appointing a judge.
Sure. But I see where you're identifying small problems that are part of this story. I'm just looking at the story in a much bigger time spectrum of just how, we just couldn't have imagined the media reacting the way it did. First off, the incident occurred on August 23rd. That's 3 weeks ago. The only reason why we even know about it is this video.
Yeah. It wasn't, think of all the media outlets who knew about it when it happened, starting, of course, with the local outlets there, who did not, cover this in the news, because I think it would have been picked up nationally quicker. It was the video that went viral, and there's people, idiots, talking heads on the left, trying to say, oh my microphone went off for a second. This just helps the right with their climate.
That's all that matters.
Of course it does.
Not a woman who's died viciously. Hello, America, wake up.
It's so, and the criticism, it's like they're angry that this story is getting noticed and covered, not with the horrendous act of DeCarlos Brown, But that, oh my God, this absolutely gives the right and the MAGA people credence to their, for years they've been talking about crime. Like, it's so out of control. So out of control.
This crazy switch flipped in 2020.
It did.
When you had a guy who overdosed on fentanyl or poisoned himself on fentanyl, and the story got totally distorted. Because this had been set up by academia and the so-called elite for decades. Really, it's starting Obama and prior. This has been building up, and then the crazies just went bonkers, and they dominate our media.
Yeah.
That is traditional. The old media, fortunately, the old media is dying because it's so absurd.
Yeah. Did you, before I got to let you go, because we're cutting this clock, did you see that clip of Don Lemon, right? I guess he's doing, online video podcast or something. And he did this old man in the street. And he runs up to this guy. I mean, he kind of goes after, who has an English accent. And the guy kind of recognizes him. He goes, wait a minute, who are you now? And he's like, oh, I'm Don Lemon. He goes, oh, you're a moron.
But
he comes back and Lemon calls that guy, no, you're a moron, like a Pee Wee Herman thing. It was so embarrassing for this man. And it just showed the absolute no self-awareness and him thinking that CNN and MSNBC are the people who have everything right and everybody else in the world are complete idiots.
Joe, Don Lemon, he's part of this story too, because he said it wasn't racially motivated when we have the audio from the killer saying it was.
Yeah.
Not an ounce.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the other thing. A passerby in that little Don Lemon thing yells out, hey, don't even bother talking to him. He's a racist. And Lemon thinks the guy's talking to him about these English gentlemen. And the guy corrects him. He goes, no, I'm telling him, you're a racist. I've watched you. And that's the other part. Don Lemon never realized, he just doesn't believe what a racist he is. Yet he trying to tell this guy, I would never call somebody a moron after he just did, by the way. But basically, when he was on the air with CNN or whatever it was, I mean, every night was him just absolutely calling everybody who didn't agree with him complete morons, racist, Nazis, constantly. Just absolutely no self-awareness there. Final thought there, Ken, because we're against the clock.
It's even worse in the UK, Joe, because they're arresting people for flying their own flag.
Yeah, I see that. Because the Union Jack is offensive. And it is. I saw that clip. The guy goes up, knocks on the guy's door to give him a hard time. He goes, what is that supposed to represent Britain? And the guy goes, yeah, exactly. That is the British flag. It represents Britain, you moron. Thank you, Ken, for the call. Appreciate it. But we got to go, folks. Fourth and final segment right after the break. Back in 2 minutes, 10 seconds. Stick with us, folks. We will return.
End your day on a high note. It's North Star Music. Evenings at 8 on Radio Central WCRN.
Junk piling up, garage bursting at the seams. It's time to call in the mighty at Mighty Movers. They don't just move, they remove. Their junk removal and clean out services are the fastest, easiest way to reclaim your space without lifting a finger. Whether it's yard waste, old furniture, garage cleanouts, or even hoarder cleanup, they've got the muscle and the mission to get it done safely and affordably. Selling your home or just tired of the clutter? They do offer full property cleanouts, demolition, and furniture delivery too. One call clears it all. Proudly serving Marlborough, Boston, Worcester, Framingham, and beyond. They're Central Mass's cleanup crew with a can-do attitude. Call 978-793-6165 or visit MightyMoversMA.com. MightyMoversMA.com. Mighty Movers. They bring the might so you don't have to lift a thing.
Hi,
I'm Lee Gaudette of the Gaudette Insurance Agency, a third-generation family business based in Whitensville with branch office locations in Grafton, Shrewsbury, Westboro, and Southborough. We are a full-service independent agency offering all aspects of insurance to businesses, families, and individuals. We are in the peace of mind business. Call, click, or come in to see us at any of our locations for a free assessment of your insurance needs. Also, listen to Radio Central WCRN every Friday morning at 9:30 for the Gaudette Insurance Show.
And I need the best cuisine for an event. My answer, Ziti. For that special catered event in your home, at church, the temple, or a meeting house, Ziti's Restaurante, Speedway Plaza in Westboro. Ziti.
WCRN.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the fourth and final segment on the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Reminding you, you can join the conversation for the remainder of the time we have together at 508-871-7000. I got a couple other things I want to touch on, but before, just one more thing on this issue, this whole stabbing in Carolina, and you've got Ray Cooper, right, the former governor, probably likely Senate candidate down there. He didn't say anything. To Ken's point, this happened way back on August 23rd. And here's this guy, former governor, hoping to be the senator, doesn't say anything for a couple of weeks. He's kind of forced by the pressure to get into this thing. And he calls it a horrible tragedy, denounced using it politically as well. And Vance, J.D. Vance, he shoots out on Twitter, X, law enforcement arrested this thug 14 times. It wasn't law enforcement that failed. It was weak politicians like you who kept letting him out of prison. Now, Roy Cooper now thinks it's cynical to point out his policies that kept Irania's killer on the streets. Again, as I said earlier in the show, they're mad that you're noticing this. And they're even madder on the left that you're pointing out, if it not for your policies, this scenario would not have been able to happen. So, again, you're totally missing the boat. You're on the wrong issue. You're more upset with the fallout of the incident and the coverage than with the incident, which is scary as all heck, guys. It just doesn't make any sense. All right, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. The lines are open and available. Now, the other day, I forget which day it was, and I know it wasn't here yesterday, but I knew I had mentioned, because I always like to share any voter fraud story or any story or incident that shows the absolute lack of integrity in our voting system, because I think that our political landscape, my personal opinion, if our elections had always been either get to, or if they've always been secure elections all along, I mean, going right back to JFK in 60, I think our whole political landscape would be different, because I think certain people would not have been elected and others would have been elected. It's just causation, guys. So anytime there's a story about this, so I know I shared this Orange County woman who registered her dog to vote. Well, now she's claiming she did this to demonstrate the flaws in the voting system. Laura Lee Urax, she's 62 years old, from Costa Mesa, California. She's got 5 felony charges facing her, which I'm okay with because you did it. Now, her reasoning for doing it is that she wanted to show the flaws. So she registered a non-existent person and casting ballots when not entitled to, because she registered her dog. And she voted in the 2020, or the dog voted in the 2021 gubernatorial recall in the 2022 primary. And one ballot cast by Mayor Jean's name during the 2021 election was accepted, while the other in the 2022 was rejected. So the question is this a stunt or a statement? The attorney for her framed the act as a deliberate attempt to expose flaws in our state voting system by pointing out that even a dog can be registered to vote in California. And she reportedly self-reported the incident to the Orange County Register of Voters in October of 24, hoping it would trigger an investigation and reforms. Now, she went and self-reported this. There might be credence or some credibility to that this was something she was doing, but you were still breaking the law. I totally get you wanting to make this point. I could even see myself wanting to make this point. And I know of it, personally know of this situation where illegal, I'm not going to undocument it, and illegal, because of the law in Massachusetts, has gotten a Massachusetts driver's license. And I asked these people, will you please let me know if you find yourself automatically registered to vote? Right? Because we have this whole process that the registry will register, sends everybody's information off to the appropriate clerk to register you to vote. Now, I've talked about this before. I don't believe, and I do not like this automatically registering people to vote just because they did something like get a license or renew their license, because they have no interest in voting. Otherwise, they would have registered themselves. So to me, you're putting one in the chamber with no intention of the person using it, meaning that you've registered someone to vote. So now you know you have the vote out there, and the chances of them going to vote are extremely low. Because if you don't have the initiative, if you don't have the care to, the energy to, the interest in registering yourself to vote, are you going to get off your butt and go vote on election day? Probably not. But you're registered, which means your vote can be taken. So I don't like that. I understand it ups the number of people registered, but it doesn't up the number of people voting per se. So I get it. But you can't do it that way. You broke the law. And then local officials sounded off the alarm. Orange County supervisors strongly criticized this stunt. No kiddings. But why? Because it undermines the public trust. So the register's saying, hey, don't register your dog on purpose to mock the system. How about you give us the confidence in this system by purging the voter list before every election? And again, that's not a negative thing. It's a positive thing. It's a positive thing. Do you want the bank to allow non-credited background employees to have access to your bank account? No, you don't. Well, this, in my opinion, is about as valuable as that. Your vote is about as valuable as your money. All right. So that's the update on the voting dog in Orange County, California. One more thing. This President Biden's use of the autopen for mass clemency is still got steam, and I still think it's an issue. All right. But Trump is doing the picture of the autopen in his Hall of Fame for presidents, which is, that's funny. So what's being said here? Alex Thompson, he's with Axios, which, is very slanted, but I get it. The scoop here, folks, is flooding the zone strategy. So what Thompson is saying, and he revealed that following the political backlash to the Biden pardoning of Hunter, the White House began pushing to find more people to grant clemency to, essentially to dilute the fallout, to rush, right? A kind of a version of taking out the trash when the White House releases all kinds of news and press releases late on a Friday, so that there's a lot and everybody's, trying to get out of their newspaper or studios or whatever by 2-3 o'clock on a Friday, get to the Hamptons, slow news weekend. By Monday, all the crap they released on Friday is old news, and that's called taking out the trash in the media business. So this strategy here was to scatter pardons across the broader group to overshadow that one particular controversial case, which would have been Hunter's pardoning, even after endless promises not to do that. And then the administration heavily relied on the autopen, right? The mechanical signature device that can duplicate the president, anybody's. It's technology. But it's used by governors and presidents, senators, Congress people, even House, because they sign a lot of birthday cards and things like that, which is fine for. But now what we're looking at, and it's probably going to make its way to SCOTUS at some point, is can it be used for legislation, to sign bills into law? Can it be used for the very serious legal business of pardon or clemency? Now, in fact, only Hunter Biden's pardon was actually personally hand-signed. So out of all of these thousands of pardons and clemencies that were signed, the only one that Joe Biden actually signed was the one for his son, to make sure that there is no question that he signed it and knew he was signing it and knew what it was all about. But if you think he knows anything, I mean, he talked about, categories and just putting it out to his people. That is not. This is an awesome power that rests in the office of the presidency. It doesn't rest in Joe Biden. It doesn't rest in Donald Trump. It didn't rest in Barack Obama. It rests in the office of the presidency. In the Supreme Court, when they look at these things, I've talked about this over and over again, they got to look at it in that way, much bigger than whoever happens to occupy the Oval at the moment. The left wants to control and scroll back a lot of these presidential powers only because Trump's the president right now, but that would roll it back for every future president. And that's what they have to look on. And internal emails show that aides like Chief of Staff Jeff Zients approved autopen use to process a flood of pardons at the last minute, including family members. So this was to get the story about the largest number of pardons from any president in the history, and this is what he did. So they obviously let people out that have no business being let out. We're out of time, but maybe at some point I'll get into some of these ridiculous people who got out or got clemency or pardoned. But this is going to wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Don't forget, you can always watch us on our social media platforms. Show is turned into a podcast. You can subscribe to it wherever you get your podcast, on Spotify or Google Play, iHeartRadio, whatever it is. But that will wrap up the Wednesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock, folks. Have a fantastic day. Frankie Boyer's on her way. Joe,
Headline news, weather, and local information. 830 WCRN.